whenever we were thinking about podcasts, I wanted to talk about things in the news because of something that happened recently at one of our baseball games.
Okay.
I'm sorry, softball games. We don't have baseball. We have softball.
Yeah.
It feels like baseball because, but nevertheless, it's softball.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with anything we're talking about.
Except that we do sponsor
We do.
a softball team, and so we like to go out there and support the people that we are sponsoring.
Yeah. So,
we have a great team.
Yeah, co-ed. It's a co-ed team, and they play in the fall. They play a fall league and a spring league, and we have a lot of fun with that. So,
Yeah.
so I took my dogs. I have 2 dogs. I have the little one, Sophie. She's a little poodle. She's old and deaf, and she just,
She's still cute, so she's in some of our ads and sometimes on our social media.
She is, and she doesn't know that she's on ads, so she like works for free, that kind of thing. So.
But she still has a diva attitude.
Oh,
so,
yeah, absolutely.
I think that comes with her being a poodle, but
yeah,
she's also spoiled rotten.
And then my big dog is I call her a German Shepherd. She's actually a version of a German Shepherd. She's
a Belgian Malinois.
Thank you.
But that's kind of difficult to say, and then people are like, "What's that?" And so we just say German Shepherd because they're close cousins. And a lot of Belgian Malinois are police dogs. So
because she's got that short, stocky. She's short,
she's
not
shorter,
tall like a German
her
Shepherd.
face is not as boxy as a German Shepherd.
But to look at her, she's got the colorings and the markings of a tan and black German Shepherd.
The Batman ears.
And all
Yeah.
that. So they go with me to the ball games. Obviously, the park is dog friendly, and they're always on the leash. They always sit with me. They're always on the leash. But what made me think about this as a topic is because I'd read some things about dog bites in the news recently, and then I was out with the dogs at the ball game, and some kids came up, and especially this one little boy. His mom's on the team. He's a sweetheart. I mean, he's precious, cute kid, but he wanted to pet Sasha, the German Shepherd, what I'll call German Shepherd.
We're going to call her German Shepherd here.
And I was like, sure, she's gentle. She's not going to, she's very gentle. She's old. She's been around kids. She goes to daycare, so she's very well acclimated to other people and other dogs.
She loves attention.
No, absolutely. And so he was petting her and loving on her, and that was fine. And then I just noticed, he just got a little bit more heavy-handed with her the more he petted and loved on her. Yeah. And finally he, once or twice smacked her on the back, like really more hard.
Like really heavy petting.
Yeah,
like
heavy petting.
Hard petting. Hard hits
petting.
of pets on the back.
Yeah, and before I could say something, because I would have said, no, sweetie, don't do that.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel good. His sister, he had an older sister, and she said, don't do that. And she corrected him, and he stopped. And, he's a good kid. They're good kids. But, it made me think about these dog bite cases that I've been hearing about, because I get email updates all the time about dog bite cases and trends and things like that. And we've had some in the news in North Carolina in the recent weeks. And so I said, this would be a good one to talk about is whenever we're talking about in the news things, let's hit some of the dog bite cases. So I started looking at the Humane Society statistics, and one of the statistics were that 77% of dog bites are by familiar dogs, which I thought that was a kind of pretty high number to me. That's pretty ironic.
Yeah.
Now, our situation at the dog park or at the ballpark would not have been a familiar dog because he had just met my dog. But, that's a pretty high number in that, you're familiar with the dog and you're for some reason or another. I don't know how they judge familiarity.
Yeah.
The second thing, though, that they said is that almost always dogs are going to give you cues that they are going to bite.
Yeah, it's usually some kind of warning or some kind of cue, like, I'm not liking this.
Right. And besides growling, obviously growling is a big cue.
Yeah, some kind of verbal cue.
But according to Humane Society, yawning is a cue.
Interesting.
It's a way that they release anxiety.
Interesting.
Licking their lips, besides growling, but licking their lips is another.
See, I would think both of those would be them enjoying whatever was happening. I would see it as a sign of enjoyment, not a sign of I'm having enough. Interesting.
Big eyes, the whites of their eyes.
That would make sense.
Ears back.
Ears back always makes sense, yes.
So all of those are cues, and maybe a child doesn't pick up on those cues, but an adult certainly should be, and a child shouldn't be left alone with a dog,
Right.
So those are situations where, but those were all from the Humane Society, so, that's just all common knowledge about dog bites and how you can predict as much as possible.
Maybe anticipate.
Anticipate is a better word, thank you. With dog bite cases. And we find that a lot in our situation. Now, we do have cases where strangers or people are bitten by dogs that they aren't familiar with. They've chased or whatever. We've certainly had that happen. So whenever you think about dog bite cases, even though they may know the family or they may know the dog, there's still some hurdles that have to be addressed.
So when someone comes to you with a dog bite case, there are some hurdles that you have to overcome to see whether you can move forward with such a case, right?
Right. There's usually there's probably more than I'm going to mention, but one is is there insurance coverage on the
is the dog insured?
Get the dog to produce his insurance card.
Yeah, and we're not talking about pet insurance here.
No, we're talking about liability.
Okay.
Because most of the time these are pets. Hopefully it's a pet, and so you got to know whether or not it's covered under the homeowner's insurance policy.
Yes.
Now, that's another problem, is finding out if there is a homeowner's or a renter's insurance policy and if pets are covered under that policy. If you get into a wreck, you get a wreck report.
Yeah.
And it lists right there, here's the name of the person that caused this accident. Here's their insurance company, and here's their policy number.
Right.
And we don't get that in dog bite cases.
No.
You
got to hunt that down.
You've got to call. You've got to write letters. You're going to hope that these people want to help you, and help your client get paid for their damages.
Right.
And they may not want to do that.
Yeah.
So there are certainly those hurdles and sometimes the only thing you can do is file a lawsuit so that you can get that stuff. If it's not going to voluntarily be given to you, then you might have to file a lawsuit, hire an attorney, file a lawsuit so that it can be mandated that it be provided, because in a lawsuit it must be provided.
So how can you find out if an insurance company covers dog bite cases? Like, let's say you're given the policy.
Well, you have to read the policy and see whether or not there's an exclusion for dogs in general, or is there an exclusion for animals? Is there an exclusion for dangerous breeds? Is there an exclusion for certain types of injuries? So you have to. A lot of policies now are excluding dog bites or animal injuries caused by animals from their policies because of just the significant liability. And so
I could see like a few decades down the road that we have to get a special type of pet insurance just to cover possible dog bite cases. Almost like what we have to do now with you have to have auto insurance to have a car. I could see that possibly being something down the road.
Yeah.
A pet liability insurance. If you're going to be a pet owner, you have to have this insurance.
Yeah.
I'm surprised California hasn't already started that.
Well, we don't know that they haven't. We're not there. We know North Carolina hasn't.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And there's been plenty of dog bite cases in the news. Most of the time what happens in a dog bite case, and this is one in the news where most recently where it was the family dog that bit the 2-year-old.
Oh, no.
And the family said that the 2-year-old fell on the dog, and the dog had bad hips, and so the dog reacted. Okay. I don't know what the dynamic was in that family with that dog, but anyway, the dog is usually removed from the home, and they're quarantined, mainly to verify that they don't have rabies or something like that. And so they're usually
so it's not for them to be monitored for aggression. It's just in case that they have rabies.
There could be some of that monitoring as well, but usually it's the rabies thing.
Okay.
But the animal control can also, if they find that the dog is aggressive, they can recommend euthanasia. If the dog has rabies, then they certainly can recommend that. Mm-hmm. If this is not the dog's first bite, they can recommend that. Now, there used to be a theory in law that said every dog gets one free bite, and that's not necessarily true. It depends on how severe this attack is. It usually also depends on the breed of the dog, because if the dog's breed has a dangerous propensity, then that dog may not get the benefit of the free bite. And that's really up to animal control. But that's another thing you can do is, animal control should be notified, and animal control will investigate and have, records as well about their investigation. So those dog bite cases, like I said, they've been in the news lately, and I just, whenever we were talking about doing, and hopefully we'll do more podcasts about that, because I like taking current events and making it part of our education here.
Yeah.
And so, I talked to Diane about that. I said, this takes real life situations, and we get to apply the law to it, just like we do with our clients whenever they walk in the door.
Yeah.
And so dog bite cases are something that we get a lot of calls about, and help when we can. And so
with the holidays right around the corner, and if you're thinking about giving a loved one a dog,
don't. You don't love anybody that you give a dog to. Don't. God bless them.
But do keep these things in mind.
That's just not, no.
I love you so much. Here's responsibility.
Yes. Here's a 15-year commitment. Have fun.
Some people think that's the best present ever. Not everyone thinks like Jackie.
Okay.
You love your puppies, though.
It's not on my list.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Not on the list.
I will scratch that off Christmas present ideas.
Thank you. Okay. I am not lonely. I do not need more love in my home. So that was one of the things.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of time left, but I had a second in the news kind of thing.
Let's hear it.
This is Jackie Hauser with the news.
That's right.
And this happened in the spring of this year here in Wilmington, but it happens everywhere. Mm-hmm. We got a lot of road construction around here. And this case kind of takes almost everything that we do and crams it into one horrific example of claims. Mm-hmm. And in the spring of this year, we had a lady DOT worker, who was working overnight on some of the roadways, and she got hit by a drunk driver. Unfortunately, she died at the scene, I believe. If not, she died shortly thereafter. So it was a fatality while she was working, so it's a workers' comp claim. And then the driver that hit her left the scene.
A hit and run. Drunken hit and run.
A drunk driver hit and run, yeah. He took a very, very bad situation and made it worse. And so, it was I remember whenever it was in the news, and initially the news was that she was injured. So I think it was like maybe a day or before the news hit that she had passed away.
And he was caught.
Yes, he drove and parked behind a church or something.
That was like just close by.
Yeah.
Another not so smart decision.
Yeah.
But you don't really make smart decisions when you're drunk.
Yeah.
I have found let me back up. I have found for me, I do not make smart decisions when I'm drunk.
But you don't drive.
I definitely don't drive. No.
Of all the stupid things I do, I don't drive.
Right. Haven't been that drunk.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Anyway, this is one of those cases where, you take it, and this lady's family now has to deal with a wrongful death claim. Mm-hmm. We talked about this a couple of podcasts back, where under this workers' comp statute, by statute, it's set out what her wrongful death claim is and what the value of it is. Mm-hmm. So she has a wrongful death claim with workers' comp. But then there's also a claim against that drunk driver for their negligence in causing the accident, and for that wrongful death claim. So there's a separate wrongful death claim there. And then there's a punitive damages claim because he was driving drunk or impaired, and because he was driving carelessly and recklessly through a work zone where there's reduced speed, and then we know that he was driving above the speed limit. Then there's punitive damages on top of that, which are punitive damages is a fancy way of saying damages to punish that behavior.
Yeah.
And so because negligence is never meant to punish, negligence is meant to compensate me for my injuries.
That's a good way of putting it, to look at it.
Yeah. Punitive damages are meant to punish because of your bad behavior.
Right.
Negligence could be an accident. Punitives are bad behavior. And so we not only have this family not only has a workers' comp claim and they have a wrongful death claim, but they have a negligence claim against this driver, and then they have a punitive damages claim against this driver. And let me be clear, this is not one of my clients. This was just something in the news. I wouldn't be talking about one of my clients on a podcast without their permission or without the family's permission. But just using this as an example, this is one of those examples where this family is going to have multiple claims, and hopefully they have representation. I'm not fishing for representation. I'm not trying to get this out there so somebody comes and hires me. But hopefully they have representation so that all of these various claims can be protected. This is one of those situations where you need protection. You need somebody to represent you. The insurance company is not the workers' comp insurance, not the auto insurance. None of these people are your friends. They are not looking out for your best interest. You need representation. And in those situations where you've lost a family member, you don't need to let your emotions get the best of you. You need to think about who can help me and be analytical and focused on getting the best recovery we can to replace to the best that we can. You can't replace a person with money, but to replace the loss, the economic value loss of that person.
Right. Right. And we talked a lot about the value of a life in our wrongful death podcast a few podcasts ago. So feel free to check that out. It's pretty serious, pretty somber subject.
It is.
We go into more depth about what wrongful death cases are, and all that jazz.
Yeah. They're probably some of the hardest cases that we deal with, and we tried to, in that podcast, we tried to address it delicately from the analytical standpoint, not the emotional standpoint.
Yeah.
But those are just a couple of cases in the news. We've got some others that we're going to talk about in future podcasts, and texting and driving and other cases like that.
Oh yeah, there's an example almost every day of someone who was texting while driving.
Yeah. And
I'm surprised we haven't had like a really big case yet. Well, I'm not going to say that because sure enough, it'll happen. But it's just be careful out there and look out for yourself as well as look out for everyone else around you.
And what we may do, and you'll see it on our Facebook page or on our social medias, we may not wait for podcasts. We may actually just, as these things happen, try to bring them to you and make them little vignettes.
Yeah, we've done a little bit of that before, so we'll be continuing to do that.
Yeah, something more timely. I mean, I know that we do podcasts a little bit ahead of time, and so by the time that they get published, sometimes it isn't necessarily
current.
Thank you for that word.
Yeah.
But I do love talking and applying current events to the law.
Yeah.
I used to love to do it as an instructor, and it's because you take real life then and you can apply it to the legal situation, and keep yourself pretty sharp on doing that.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. We really appreciate all the views, guys. And if you do ever have any questions about anything that we cover, do feel free to comment or send us a direct message. We'll be happy to try to answer them as soon as we can and as efficiently as we can, because sometimes, you ask a simple question and it could take paragraphs.
Well, sometimes the question seems simple, but it's not.
Yeah, but it's not. It's a very complicated answer. But we've got the pro here, and I'm sure with more podcasts, a question could prompt a podcast. So definitely ask us any questions and keep watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching Laughter in the Law,
where we talk about the law with a lighthearted twist.